You might ask, is the Codex Alimentarius a Roman emperor? And the answer probably, and sadly, would be no. But Boris Johnson's latest froth-flecked column in the Daily Mail is not exactly wisdom. A piece so unasinous, so catastrophically underwitted that it should come with its own warning label, and I'm disappointed in him, may induce dizziness, smirking, and a deep yearning for basic logic. In Johnson's telling, Keir Starmer has achieved a geostrategic coup by sidling up to Donald Trump and forging a flimsy trade deal. A deal as substantial as a Dorito in a hurricane. And the true hero, why? Brexit, of course. Like a magician pulling the same mangled rabbit from his hat, Boris insists Brexit has made us a bridge between Europe and America. And I turn now, oddly, to Isabel Oakeshott, who says that she's not sure this is a Brexit deal, and she's not sure it's a terribly good deal. And I'm afraid, in a funny way, I agree with her. Not for exactly the same reasons, because I wouldn't be entirely backing up Isabel Oakeshott, but I don't think... I think it's less of a bridge and more of a crumbling rope ladder suspended over an abyss of chlorinated chicken and 10% car tariffs. But Johnson didn't stop there. This is in the Daily Mail. No. He claims Starmer's capacity to intersect the two continents is proof that Britain is back. It's like, do you remember that wonderful scene in Dr. Dolittle, the musical with Rex Harrison? And Anthony Newley, where the floating island goes back to Africa and the two parts of the divided tree join back together. It's a wonderful, wonderful scene. If you haven't seen it, do go along and see it, because it's superb and so much better, actually, I'm afraid, than the slightly leaden remake recently with the Iron Man. Anyway, this. If Britain is back, it's somewhere between subservience and a food hygiene inspection. So Boris's leaps in logic in this very entertaining but frankly deluded article, that's assuming that if logic hasn't packed its bags and moved off to Brussels. But Boris's leaps in logic are interesting. I found four, I think. The post hoc ergo Brexit hoc, because Boris claims that the trade deal is proof that Brexit worked, but correlation isn't causation. That's like saying you got fitter because you bought trainers. You still have to do the running. The bridge metaphor that Boris paints, where he's basically suggesting that Britain is a glorious connector between America and Europe. In reality, the UK looks less like a bridge and more like a lonely toll booth in a lay-by, pleading for relevance from two juggernauts with better places to be. The fact that Britain has produced a bridge doesn't mean anyone's going to use it. And the Trump poodle problem, which I think envelops the entire article. Starmer appears in a photo op with Trump, but it's from the past. I haven't even got a photo op now. Eyes agleam, nodding like a bobblehead on a washing machine. Not like one of those poodles that you place at the back of the car. And if this is British leadership, it's of the Kennel Club variety. Trump barks, Starmer hapaxanthically comes to heel. And he's not so much a statesman as an archaeological curiosity, something found under a microscope crawling towards appeasement. And the deal doesn't remove all tariffs. In fact, we're still being punished like recalcitrant colonials over cauliflowers and flame-retardant sofas. If this is a victory, then the charge of the Light Brigade was a masterclass in cavalry diplomacy. Now, Boris describes Starmer's potential as extraordinary, yet we all know Starmer's charisma is hapaxanthic. It occurred once, like a flower that only blooms once. It occurred once. Hapaxanthic. briefly, during a particularly moving focus group, Johnson wants us to believe that Starmer, the IKEA instruction manual of politicians, is secretly a master of global strategy. Meanwhile, Trump, well, only not because Boris backs Starmer, but because Boris backed Brexit, and this is the first proof that Brexit might have done something positive. And I'm afraid, on reflection, yesterday I was prepared to accept that maybe it was true. On reflection, I think it's complete rubbish. And Trump, the defiantly prosperous, weed-choking gardener in the flower bed of Western democracy, has talliated with maniacal precision and maniacal passion, not with ideas, not with diplomacy, but with tariffs, tantrums, and truths so tortured they should all apply for asylum elsewhere. And yet Starmer genuflects and talliates himself. One almost feels sorry for Keir Starmer, almost, for in attempting to be all things to all men, Atlantically ambidextrous, he has become little more than Trump's obedient English spaniel, wagging for a US trade bone that's barely left any meat on it. Johnson ends with Dean Akerson's famous line, "Britain has lost an empire and not yet found a role." And to this, Boris offers a role, chief transatlantic butler. He proposes a trade council based in London, Brussels and Washington. It sounds like Yes Minister meets Brideshead revisited, with slightly more European cheese and slightly less understanding of international standards, laws. And his suggestion that we discard regulations, that we embrace ambiguity and simply trust American products, is worthy of a GCSE economics fail. We do not need fewer regulations. We need a mutual trust built on shared standards. Boris is pitching a post-regulatory utopia where everything is frictionless, effortless, and just a bit, dare I say, imperial. The spirit of empire survives, it seems, not in global leadership, but in fantasy roleplay by Boris and Trump. So where does this leave us? With an article in the Daily Mail long on nostalgia, short on logic, with a former Prime Minister who, like the ghost of Christmas Brexit, rattles chains and reminds us of how far we haven't come, and with Starmer, like a flower that flowers once, underwitted, archaeologically irrelevant, grinning beside the man who once recommended injecting bleach. If this is Britain's greatest strategic moment, it's one worthy of a slapstick opera from the Marx Brothers, not a strategic blueprint from the government. So let me say this very clearly. Britain deserves better than a bargain bin trade agreement brokered by a weed and endorsed by a poodle. We are not a bridge. We are not a lapdog. We are a sovereign nation, and it's time to act like one, for goodness sake. And if Boris is going to write another article in the Daily Mail, maybe he could check it for logistical rubbish first. The fallacies are floating like millweed.